First, though, the questions about Brett Kavanaugh. After first being outed in the press, college professor Christine Blasey Ford came forward this weekend as the woman accusing Judge Kavanaugh of sexual assault more than 30 years ago. Ford alleges that at a high school party, Kavanaugh, while inebriated, forced the teenager into a room and attacked her before she was able to escape. As Lisa Desjardins reports, the allegation has drawn swift responses from the White House to Capitol Hill.
Judge Kavanaugh is one of the finest people that I've ever known.
President Trump defended his nominee today, but said Brett Kavanaugh's accuser should be heard out.
At the same time, we want to go through a process. We want to make sure everything is perfect, everything is just right. They'll go through a process and hear everybody out. I think it's important. I believe they think it's important.
Kavanaugh himself issued a strong denial, his second in 4 days, saying, quote, "I have never done anything like what the accuser describes to her or to anyone," adding he is willing to cooperate with the Senate Judiciary Committee. Kavanaugh's accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, detailed the alleged attack in a letter to Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein in late July. CNN reported the letter says of Kavanaugh and a friend, quote, "They both laughed as Kavanaugh tried to disrobe me in their highly inebriated state. With Kavanaugh's hand over my mouth, I feared he may inadvertently kill me." A lawyer for Ford confirmed to the Today Show that she is willing to testify. Democrats were quick to call for a delay in Kavanaugh's confirmation. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin.
We're talking about a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land of a Supreme Court justice who could be the deciding vote for a generation or more. Is it worth an extra week or two? For goodness sakes, of course it is.
A handful of Republicans also voiced concern. Senator Jeff Flake, a key Judiciary Committee vote, told Politico Ford should testify before any committee decision on Kavanaugh, saying, quote, "I don't think I'm alone in this." Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, another key vote, agreed.
If there are more questions that need to be asked and answered, then I think it would be appropriate to allow for that time.
Maine Senator Susan Collins echoed calls for Kavanaugh and Ford to testify.
Having the opportunity to observe her being questioned is so important. Obviously, if Judge Kavanaugh has lied about what happened, that would be disqualifying.
On this, key senators like Collins and Murkowski, who will decide Kavanaugh's fate, are in the spotlight as much as the judge himself. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Lisa Desjardins.
And for more on how that story came to light, I'm joined now by Emma Brown. She's an investigative reporter at The Washington Post who has been in touch with Ford for months before publishing her account last night. Emma Brown, thank you very much for talking with us. Tell us, how did you first have contact with Professor Ford?
She first reached out to the Washington Post through a confidential tip line that we have, and she did that in early July. That was a point at which Kavanaugh had risen to the short list of Trump's potential Supreme Court nominees, but was not yet the nominee. And she reached out and she wanted to speak confidentially. She really wanted to tell somebody what had happened to her, she said, but she was not ready to go public. She understood that that would come at a great personal price, I think. So we spoke off the record, and I stayed in touch with her throughout the summer as she really struggled with what to do with this story that she's had. She said she felt she had a civic duty to tell what had happened to her, but she also, again, was trying to balance that against the realities of what it would mean for her if she came forward. By late August, she had decided she would not come forward, that it wasn't worth it. She said she would be annihilated and it wouldn't matter for the confirmation vote. And that was a calculation that changed in recent days as information about this confidential letter she had sent to Senator Feinstein began to leak out. So she sent a letter to Feinstein detailing this incident and asking that it be kept private. And she says, Feinstein honored that request, and that's why it didn't come out sooner.
The timeline of what Professor Ford says happened has become more familiar. How confident is she that it was definitely Brett Kavanaugh? Did you question her about that?
I mean, this is something that she's never wavered on. She said that you know, she knew him from social interactions before, that her friend group and his friend group had intersected for a time. You know, she was clear that most of her high school career, her friends were hanging out with other boys, but she has never voiced any doubt that it was Brett Kavanaugh.
And the denial from the other boy, now man, who was in the room, Mark Judge, you reached out to him, and his reaction has been what?
He declined to comment when I reached him yesterday. On Friday, before her name became public, when this was still an anonymous allegation, he flatly denied it. He said Judge Kavanaugh had never, as a young man or when he was older, engaged in any kind of behavior like that.
Just to be clear, she took no notes or told no one at the time, contemporaneously. Is that right?
That's correct. She didn't tell anybody for a very long time. In fact, she said she didn't tell anyone in any detail until 2012, when she was in couples therapy with her husband. And she talked about it then. Her husband recalled on the record that conversation and said he even recalled her using Kavanaugh's last name and voicing concern that he might be elevated someday to the Supreme Court. Therapist notes from that session don't name Kavanaugh, but do show that she talked about an assault from by boys at an elitist school, it said, who went on to become high-ranking members of Washington society. So there are those notes. There are notes from the following year, an individual therapy session where she reported an attempted rape in her late teens. And so those are the pieces of evidence that we were able to present outside of her own recollection and testimony.
Emma Brown, investigative reporter for The Washington Post. Thank you.
Thanks.